Hey guys, David here. Hope you're all having a great weekend. I'm doing well. Out here on my patio, it's probably about 95 degrees here in Central California, Central Valley. But I have my trusty evaporative cooler blowing on me, so it helps a lot. It's a portable type thing that you can wheel around. I normally have it in my garage gym, but brought it out here, so it feels nice and cool. It works really well unless it's really humid outside, but right now it's doing pretty well. It feels nice and cool. Smoking today some Distinguished Gentleman and an old pipe that belonged to my father-in-law. His name was Haskell Peaker, and he smoked pipes for a few years. And this is a Masterson Freehand, probably from the late 60s, maybe 70s. It's got some wear and tear on it, some clench marks on it, but I cleaned it and it's good to go. I enjoy using it. It makes me think of my father-in-law, who was a really great guy. I also today used some of these Vinicool crystals to see how it changes the smoking experience. Just finished watching Double O Pipe, Rick, and he was mentioning using these, so I actually had loaded up a bowl of Borkum Riff Black Cavendish, which isn't my favorite tobacco. I've had it forever. Smoked that for a few minutes, and after watching Rick, I dumped that out. He was using some crystals in his pipe today, so talking about how it helped with tongue bite and all that. So I changed tobaccos and put some crystals in, and I'm smoking this now, which is enjoyable. Distinguished Gentleman was given to me by Jamie, smoking in my car a while back when he was making videos. Well, as I mentioned, I was watching Rick. Just finished watching his video. He was talking about a school experience, and started me thinking about my stories that I used to tell about my jobs and all that. And I think where I ended was with Greenfield School District. That would have been in the summer of 1988. I finished my job there. So my wife and I had looked at different colleges. I had been attending Bakersfield College for a year. And then I started going to Cal State Bakersfield, which, curiously enough, this is the shirt that I have on. It says CSUB Dad. I bought it at one of my kids' graduations. Anyway, so I went there for a couple years, but I worked full time when going to school, and I wasn't the best informed about college. So my first college major was anthropology, because I, like many others, had watched Raiders of the Lost Ark and decided that archaeology was for me. So you couldn't get an archaeology major, so I chose anthropology. So I really didn't have a good idea then of the job market. I was kind of clueless. No one in my family really went to school. I did have an uncle that had gone to school, but I didn't really talk with him all that often. We weren't that close. Well, I could have asked him for his advice, but I just didn't for whatever reason. I was 20 years old. Thought I could figure it out on my own. So I went to school. Choosing these majors, I didn't really think about how important it was to get the correct major for your job. I had no idea what the job market was like at all, especially for someone studying anthropology. I didn't realize that anthropologists, you needed to have a PhD to do anything, which I had no intention of doing that. I didn't even like school. Never enjoyed it. Never enjoyed junior high or high school. I went to college because I felt that I needed to my grandpa used to always tell me, get your education. He really pushed that. So I felt that it was something I needed to do to better myself, And I did have the one uncle that was a school teacher who I really respected. He's the only one in my family that had a college degree. My grandpa, I think he had about a 4th grade education. He was born in 1905, and then had to drop out of school so he could work and help his mom and brothers and sister. Mom, brother, and sister, actually. So, when he said, get your education, he probably meant finish high school. But I took that to mean I should go to college. So anyway, I spent a lot of money in college and a lot of time spinning my wheels. Working full-time in college isn't really the best idea, but I had no other option. I had for my graduation present in high school, my mom co-signed for me to get a used car. So I had a car and car payment to make and insurance to pay and anything else that I wanted, I had to buy myself. My stepdad wasn't exactly a pleasant person, and he was very jealous of any money that my mom spent on me. So an example of this would be when I had my paper out in junior high school, and I wanted to buy that new pair of Nike tennis shoes that were above the Kmart brand tennis shoes. My mom would tell me to not to take him in my bedroom until my stepdad had gone to sleep. So I don't know why she did that, but I had to sneak anything that I bought with my own money into the house for some reason. I guess because she probably thought that he would want me to pay for my food, room and board type thing. When I was in high school, that's the only thing I could figure. So that's how I lived my life. Anything I bought for myself, I had to sneak it in the house after he went to bed, so he wouldn't know about it. Anyway, all that's really neither here nor there. All that to say that I had to have a job, so working through college with a full-time job is not advisable. I took whatever classes I could fit into the schedule and wasn't really ever able to build a solid schedule that would benefit me. I ended up taking classes for units, but when you take classes just for units, you miss some of the core classes you need, and it was just kind of a mess. So I'd spun my wheels for probably 4 years already in college. By the time I was 24, 25, that would be 1988, 89, I guess. Anyway, my wife and I wanted to go to a Christian college. I really wanted to finish my degree. I was going to drop out of college here in Bakersfield because I was not able to. I was just burnt out, working and going to school, studying. Every spare minute was spent, reading books on the weekend, trying to do assignments that I couldn't do during the week, which was really tough on a newly married couple. Spending Saturdays all day reading or whatever. And I was never the type to put things off. I couldn't really get away with browsing chapters and passing tests. I always struggled with comprehension. So in college, I had all these chapters to read. I was mostly paranoid that if I didn't cover every single bit of material that I wouldn't do well. So anyway, a lot of time was spent studying and doing stuff for school and not living a nice, fun life as a newly married couple. Anyway, so my wife and I really wanted to go to a Christian school at that time. We had talked with the pastor of our church. He recommended one of our church colleges called Mid-America Bible College in Oklahoma City. That was just a little too far for us. We didn't have a lot of extra money to go to college, so we kind of looked around closer. And just up north, about an hour and a half, is a city, Fresno, California. There was a school there called Fresno Pacific College, and that the school wasn't our denomination. It was a Mennonite Brethren school. So We weren't part of that church or anything, but it was a good, solid school. We thought it was neat. We went there though, and the student advisor, was actually a member of the same denomination we were members of, which is Church of God, based in Anderson, Indiana. It's the non-charismatic version of the Church of God. Not Pentecostal, but just part of the holiness movement, but it wasn't charismatic like the Pentecostal Church of God would be. So it was kind of neat to meet him. We looked around the school and thought it was really neat, but we didn't really have any hopes of going there because it was really expensive. I think back then it was about $14,000 a year, which was more than I made, really. I think I was working full time, making about a little less than $1,000 a month, and I had to paper out back then along with my job, but still, funds weren't really available. So I came back home, and one day I got a phone call. My wife got a phone call, actually, from this gentleman at Fresno Pacific, offering us both a full ride scholarship for 1 year. So we immediately made the decision to move to Fresno, which meant, though, that I had to quit my job, which was kind of scary. But we felt that God was really calling us to do that. So quit my job here in Bakersfield, took out any savings that I did have, and moved to Fresno. Now, housing wasn't included, so we still had to work. So we got a custodian job at the school, actually for some custodial company that we worked. So even then, we'd go to school, and I think from 6 till 10, we had to work a part-time clean job. But luckily, my wife and I were able to work together. We cleaned a bank and some other buildings. Did that for a couple of years. No, not a couple of years. We did that for a while. And eventually the school, started looking around at the school for any job opportunities. And I talked to a guy that was head of maintenance, and they had a need for a couple janitors. So my wife and I were lucky enough to be able to work at the actual college. So we spent the same time, usually 6 till 10 or 6 till 11 or something like that. We worked as janitors at the school. So we cleaned and got paid enough to pay our rent. After a year or so, we were able to move into an apartment building that the school actually owned. So our rent was cut in half. We went from paying like $400 a month to $185 or something, including utilities, which was great. So we lived at that place until we finished school, or I finished school. So we were in Fresno from August of 1989 to December of 1990, which is when I was able to graduate. Unfortunately, I had about a year and a half to go, so even though we had student aid for a year, that extra 6 months we had to get student loans to pay for. So that began our descent into student loans, which was not a good idea. So we couldn't really leave, though, because I had 6 months to go, just a few units to finish there. So we borrowed the money and finished out half of that school year. So in December of 1990, I finished right before Christmas, and we moved back to town, and I immediately began looking for a job. And I was able to pick up another paper route. So up every morning at 3:30, finished the paper out by probably 7 or so, and then I began substitute teaching, which was stressful then because it was neat. I remember being really happy that I could use my college degree for something that was really neat. And I think it paid, I don't know, it was about $90 a day, which was really good money for then. The problem with substitute teaching is you never know how much time you're going to work. So we couldn't really plan a budget because every month We just didn't know what I was going to be able to make. So I kept the paper out, did janitorial work, had a paper out, did substitute teaching. Then I picked up some janitorial work in the evening. So for a while I was working a ridiculous amount of time. My wife, when we were in school, had gotten pregnant with our first baby, Emily, which was exciting but also very scary. So she wasn't really able to work at that time. So I worked a lot of crazy jobs, a lot of crazy hours. All this to say, if you're going to go to college, and college isn't for everyone, man, talk to people who know what they're doing. Get some advice. Try not to work if you don't have to. Going to school, it's not a good combination. It can be done, but it's very difficult, and you spend a lot of time and money on extra classes that you really find out don't do you a bit of good at the end. However, the good news is everything turned out fine, and eventually my wife got her degree, got her teaching credential. I got a teaching credential eventually, history, secondary, high school teaching credential. But high school teachers, history teachers, don't really like to quit their jobs. So I was never able to find employment as a high school history teacher. I worked 5 years at a private Christian school, teaching some history classes, but again, it hardly paid anything, so I had to keep the paper out. While doing that, eventually, in about 1999 or 2000, I finally was hired by the city of Delano, another little town up north a ways, as a teacher. And that's the first time in my life that I was able to work one job. And I did that, and Amy at that time had a daycare going because our kids were small, so she could stay home and do that. But that was the first time that I could ever work one job, and it was wonderful just to be able to come home at night and not have to go back out collecting money or getting up at 3:30 in the morning to deliver newspapers. So that's the next part of that was the next step along the way. And in the next video, I'll talk a little more about my experience at the Christian Junior High School. Thanks for listening, guys. It's a long video, 18 minutes. I appreciate you listening to me. Talk to you all soon.